Hi, everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and we are live on a Sunday afternoon, which means it's time for us to talk about coping with stress. Now, it's very difficult to talk about stress when this is the first day of spring. So, what I want to do is have a conversation about why we feel good in spring, and I believe that we do. Why is it that spring feels different? And what are we going to do to take that knowledge, realize the things that make it feel different, and then incorporate that into our daily lives rather than just wait until spring? And as some of you know, I've done some of those steps this year, and I'm going to talk a bit more about those. But also, a little later on, I want to talk a little bit about what happens when we go into shock or trauma, and then what to do about it. And the reason that I want to do that is because we had Jody and Lionel go through a lot of shock and trauma this week. And what I wanted to make sure you all understand is what they did, how they coped with that, and how they are, still having the after effects of that. So hi to Kimmy and hi to Jody. For those of you who don't know, Jody is our admin and does a great job of looking after us all, and particularly looking after me, I might add. So a very, very happy first day of spring to everybody, unless, of course, you happen to be in the southern hemisphere, in which case, welcome autumn. It's amazing the difference. But let's start off by talking a little bit about spring. Let me ask you guys that are in the room, either in the chat directly or watching in the background, and we always love it when you're there. Thank you. Feel free to stay there if that's what you choose to do. But on the other hand, if you'd like to participate, we'd love to hear from you. First thing is, why do we always feel better in spring? Hi, Autumn, you heard your name. All right, why does our happiness quotient seem to go up when it's spring? Do you feel more optimistic because it's spring? Do you feel more cheerful because it's spring? And if so, what causes those things? And let's see what input we get back. And while we're waiting for that, I've got that nice quote, and it says, "Blossom by blossom, the spring begins." Isn't that true? I go, okay, the snowdrops have been, and the crocuses have been, and now my tulips are coming up very nicely. Thank you. I don't have too many daffodils in my garden. I think there are a couple there, but not very many. Probably change that for next year. But I know it's going to look very pretty. And I really love the fact that the viewers who are in the chat are sending me little bouquets of flowers. It's wonderful. I can, tulips and roses and sunflowers. And it's just so cute. Nice one, Kimmy. I can see you're in a creative mood today. So yes, what about this? Do we feel better just because it's spring suddenly? I certainly do. I just want to know if I'm the only one. When I woke up this morning and realized, oh yeah, that's right, today is spring, I I immediately felt lighter. And right, Jody's saying everything is new again. Good. I'm going to talk a bit about that. Autumn is saying, I love spring. It's so refreshing. But Autumn, here's my point. Was it so much different from yesterday when it was winter? You understand? How much of this is psychological? Now, I love spring too. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I like the blossom by blossom bit about spring. It's like, I'm a person that does that. What about, do you think it's about the daylight? That we know there's more daylight coming. There's more hope coming in that as well. Our days are going to be longer. We're going to be able to be outside more. What is it for you? What about the colors? Right? How many of you like the colors of spring? Jessica Harrelson said, spring adds new life and new beauty to all that is. And I think that is so true. All right, Autumn's saying it just started getting warm here last week. And so, yes, it's very, very different. Yes, so for autumn, it's about it's warming up. And Kimmy's probably still got snow on the ground. Yeah, that's right. And that's just came up. And Kimmy's saying, I don't know. I didn't know it was spring today. It's cold and snow and rain. Yes. All right. So this getting warmer is subjective in terms of where you live. All right. Definitely here. It's a beautiful spring day today. I must say, really pretty. How many of you are looking forward to spending more time outside or with the windows open more because it's spring? And how many of you are struggling, as am I, because this also means more pollen? All right? Think about that, because for me, spring, although I love it and I'm already, paying, I spring for me is very difficult, or late winter, early spring, because I suffer from allergies. Autumn's saying we went to the playground 3 times this week. Well, how did you and the twins enjoy that, Autumn? And, tell me about going to the playground. Hi, Jeannie. Good to see you. Tell me about going to the playground. What does that do for the twins, and what does it do for you? What is it about going, the weather being that much better that you can go to the playground and enjoy it more? What does it do? Does it lift their spirits? Does it help get some of their energy out? And so that means you have a more peaceful evening. What is it about going to the playground that is such fun for you? Because I can hear that it is. Ellis Peters said every spring is the only spring, a perpetual astonishment. Yeah, I've got to admit that I'm always astonished with spring. I have to. That's actually a very good quote. I always sort of shake my head and go, "Isn't that pretty?" I definitely like the colors. And I definitely, for those of you who remember my Lady Gardner rose that I got as a housewarming present, seeing the little shoot starting on that, I just got so, the little kid in me is going, look at that, look at that. She's growing. For me as well, things popping out of the ground gives me great joy. Right. Jeannie's saying, and she's in Maine, just so that you all know, the past 2 days, temperatures were high, 49 to 50 degrees, but very, very foggy this morning. Yes, but it's still spring. Right? So it's like fog is part of that transition into spring in some ways. So you look at it and go, isn't it amazing the effect it has on our psyche? All right. So now the question that I want to talk to you about is, if we know what we like about spring, do you understand that we can bring less stress and more happiness into our lives by incorporating those things into our life more often? And I'll talk to that in a second. Autumn is saying, my 2 big kids love it. And the twins enjoy riding around in the wagon. Uh, in winter, we're inside a lot, and you're with TV on and tablets. Going outside to play and seeing people again feels so new. Yes, a very good point, Autumn, that we are seeing people again this year. All right, a lot of the restrictions have come down, and so I think that is really amazing. Kimmy's saying though that they cancelled our health fair. Due to what, Kimmy, the lab? I'm not quite sure what that is about, but you'll let me know, I'm sure. It's probably I just don't understand the context there. So what I want to do is just for a second go back over that list. What colors do you associate with spring? All right? Autumn, don't worry about the typos. I'm normally pretty good about being able to read through them. I think I did well. Oh, isn't it interesting? Jeannie's saying, I saw a handsome male cardinal, that's a bird, at the bird feeder today. Love seeing people and animals again. Jody, on the other hand, right, so we now Jeannie loves the red of a red cardinal, which is really quite a winter bird, right? But Jody's saying she loves the pastels of spring. So the pale yellows, the pale pinks, the light greens, the pastel hue of spring. Now, I like the vibrant hues of spring. All right, I like the deep yellows, the deep reds, but also the pastels as well. To me, it's like I just love seeing the little bit of green and the little bit of red coming out of my rose bushes. It's just like any minute now. Any minute now, they're gonna flower. The funny thing is that I noticed on my property here, that the poppy seeds have sort of scattered themselves over I have lava rock outside in my front yard. And the poppy seeds have self-seeded all over the place. And I just love them. I've left them there because I love, and they're all orange. It's all one color, orange. And I'm hoping that over the years that will end up being a really amazing orange poppy display, done by nature itself. Jeannie's saying she likes the green grass, the yellow daffodils, the reds of spring. Right. And you see, Jody immediately comes back with, and the pink tulips, right? Sorry again, the pastels, right? So she's very consistent, our Jody. So, to me, it's like, but with the green grass comes, mowing. Oh, okay. So let me see. Kimmy's saying they canceled the health fair due to the lab. All right. So they do the A1C cholesterol and other tests. So why has that stopped them doing the health fair? I'm missing a bit of information there. All right. And it said that you can cut all the flowers, but you cannot keep spring from coming. All right. Have you noticed that the spring sort of comes in waves, and you get the first lot of flowers, and then the second lot, and then the third lot, and it's wonderful. I get very invigorated. Yeah, Autumn's saying I love the colors, but I definitely have some allergies. Yeah, I got some serious allergies. And this is, an English proverb is no matter how long the winter, spring is sure to follow. Isn't that lovely? And Robin Williams said that spring is nature's way of saying, let's party. How many of you are looking forward to, maybe a barbecue outside, or, getting warm enough to be able to do that sort of thing? And so to me, it's about, it's really important. How many of you are looking forward to there being even more light in the day? All right, that the days are getting longer. Yeah, Autumn, I totally agree with you. She's saying every night I can't fall asleep because I'm coughing. I find luckily I've got an adjustable bed, and I have to keep sort of readjusting my bed so that I don't feel like I'm going to choke. I did think that actually after I think I'm well enough now to be able to go back to wearing my CPAC machine, and I will try that soon. We will see how I do. Okay. So Kimmy's saying they can't do tests now because of the lack of supplies. All right, so that's interesting that you won't be able to do your A1C because lack of supplies. Now I understand it. Thank you, Kimmy. Um, and then also, would that be the reason why they can't have the fair as well, because they don't have enough supplies for that? And we did say that was coming, right? So to be aware of that. I know that I'm due to do my A1C by the end of the month, so I will try and do that. Now then, how many of you remember that I intentionally brought some bright, deep, actually not bright, deep yellow cushions for my bed a couple of weeks ago? The reason I want to say that is because I realized if I want, hi there, Mark, Pat, Joe, and Bill, dinosaur. Hmm. I think welcome. Which one have I got? Mark, Pat, Joe, or Bill? But you remember I bought those bright yellow, big, 2 foot square pillows for my bed, uh, so that I could have spring just a little bit earlier. And it's amazing, that every time I walk in there, that's sort of I'm really aware of that coloring, and love it, and so glad that I did that. So, um, if you say so, Mark, Pat, Joe, Bill, Dinosaur. Yeah. Hi, it's good to see you. So, how many of you intentionally bought something to bring spring into your house this year? All right, to bring it in earlier. So, Kimmy, who lives in Wyoming, I don't know, I hope I got that right this time, said that they also were telling anybody that's about to have a baby that they need to find a new doctor or hospital. Wow, that is amazing. So I just am very fortunate that we're not at that state yet, but it could be coming. How many of you are looking forward to bringing more light into your house? And you heard that I wanted to bring spring into my house earlier, so I brought the bright yellow cushions. The question I have is, if you need more light in your house next autumn and winter, what about saving up for the natural light bulbs? You know what I mean? The full spectrum light bulbs. Start saving now so that you've got them for next fall and winter. Um, because they're more expensive, but if you crave light, it is an investment. It definitely is not a waste of money. It is an investment. I definitely have a lot more LEDs now that are much brighter, and they also help me um, stay, within enough light in my life. How many of you, those of you who are looking forward to fresh air? Yeah, Kimmy's saying light and open windows. Yes, that's just what I was going to say, the fresh air thing. Before I get in onto that, let me just say that spring is when you feel like whistling, even with your shoe full of slush. Isn't that amazing? But isn't that also the truth? Yeah, right? uh, okay, so Mark, Pat, Joe, Bill. Um, I believe what Jody is our admin, so what she's doing is saying, go right ahead and ask the question, but just please stay polite. Okay, so Mark is saying that he got himself translucent curtains, translucent as in see-through. All right, so you could let the light in. Enough. Yeah, I must admit that my blinds are a pale, very pale, almost sea green, very pale, very enough that nobody can see in, but not dark enough that the light can't get in. So that's a good thing. Jeannie's saying she loves the fresh air. I'm already opening bedroom windows and leaving the doors ajar. Yeah, and so is Jody. Well, I think you all know that I made a point this winter of doing that every day. During the winter, one of the things I realized was that I need to get outside every day to get fresh air, but I also um, wanted to make sure that the air was getting into my house. So what I did is every day I would go out for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, no, not away from the house, but just in the garden, pottering around. And what I would do is I'd leave my big patio doors open while I was outside. So while I was outside, sweeping leaves or shoveling snow or doing whatever little bits I wanted to do outside, getting fresh air into my lungs, I left the big patio doors open so that fresh air could get into the house. Does that make sense to everybody? So I didn't lock up the house every day. What I did was I kept the fresh air coming in. So, you look at it, um, and you go to yourself, what am I doing to help myself here? All right. Um, I look at it and go, I have changed a lot of my winter habits to make sure that I bring more spring into my life. Ah, interesting. Kimmy's saying her curtains in her bedroom are spring firm green. Yeah, mine are very pale, sort of almost on the blue, very pale, aqua almost. Difficult to describe. They actually look a little bit like gray green. I don't know how to describe it. It's a very interesting color. Maybe I'll take a picture and show you. Hold on a second. Okay, so on the side, let me try that again. Okay, what color would you call that? Oh, interesting. Um, Mark is asking me, what do I think about YouTube channels with multiple topics and niches? Do I think it's the right way to go? I think having a single niche if you're in it to make money, I would say probably keeping to the single niche is a better way to go. Uh, but I personally like doing the different niches because that suits my personality. Wow, that looks like a yellow ochre, really. And it's not Jody. I just want to tell you that. Uh, okay, are you sure that looks yellow to you? It looks white to Jeannie. So it's interesting. To me, it's sort of almost a pale gray green. I don't know what to call it. All right. Anyway, so one of the joys of computer screens. So if you think about it, let's go back to this. That would you agree that you had the choice all winter to open up your doors or your windows and let the fresh air in? So the question is, what stopped you if you didn't? And I'm pretty certain most of you would immediately say, um, because all the heat will get out. All right? The heat would get out. And so to me, I decided I wasn't going to worry about that. All right. I wasn't going to worry about the heat getting out. I was more concerned about the fresh air getting in. And I am so glad that I did that. Also, my big patio doors are, where my deck is, so that when I opened my doors, even if it was pouring with rain or snowing, no weather was going to get into the house. So that's it. Yep. Um, Mark is saying, I want to scale and grow my digital presence big. I have multiple interests, so starting different channels for different topics seems unrealistic. I wanted, and you asked a straight question, and I gave you a straight answer. If you're in it for the money, keep to a niche. There's so much research to show that, that is the way to go. I do 3 different broadcasts, and they each have totally different focus. And Friday lunchtime, I do coping with feelings. Friday evening, I do a cooking thing. And then Sundays, I talk about stress. All right. So Jeannie is saying, oh, hi there, Chris. Good to see you. I'm worried about the heat getting in. Yeah, right. Hi, Chris. You always make me chuckle. All right. So Jeannie's saying York is her husband. York is always cold. I'm usually warm, but he complains in winter. And that's why I go out, Jeannie, into the elements while the doors are open, because then when I come back, even though the house has cooled down, it doesn't feel that way, because I've been in much, the weather, the temperature I've been in has been cooler. So I walk back into the house and it feels fine. I close the door, the heat pumps up, and everything's fine. So there we go. As I said, Kimmy's saying she doesn't leave the doors open because of crime and the weather. I think I did explain that I'm not walking away from the house. I am, in my own garden, within sight of the doors. So there are not too many people are going to come and break into my house while I'm there. All right. So now, in terms of your experience of spring, do you understand the point that I'm trying to make here? Which is, if you enjoy spring, bring more of what you enjoy about spring into your life as a general thing. Don't wait just until spring. I find that things popping out of the ground is one of the joys, as you know, of my life. And I thought I would remind you all that we have the ability to have things, growing in front of us all winter if we want to. And so I want to say that this is, really interesting. I think some of you know, you all know about my ongoing experiments there. You all know about the potato that I've been growing inside. Um, and it's still 2 slats away from the window frame. And we will start trying to harvest it at the end of April. So, it's interesting. I have managed, I just thought I'd tell you, I'm having some success with these lettuce seeds at last. And that is because I changed how I was growing them. I didn't know that you needed to grow lettuce seeds in light. So I've got seeds now between two things of paper towel, and it's working really well. So these are not lettuce, these are kale, but you can see they're growing really well the same way. And some of you'll remember that I said I'd like to learn how to make sprouts and microgreens. So this week I've started that experiment. And there we go. And as soon as I understand how it all works, I will be able to give you the hack on that one. So just so you know, Mark, Jody is a female, not a male, just so that you know. All right, so Mark, as we've never seen you before, I think that's the confusion. What is it that you really want help with? There are so many wonderful channels that help you start your YouTube business if that's what you want to do. So I'd gladly share what I know, but what I know isn't necessarily what you might want to have. Jeannie's saying, we're still so happy about being back home. Today, neighbors brought us a package that was mistakenly sent to their house. All right. And they were a lovely Russian family with 2 young girls. Oh gosh, Jeannie, how difficult must it be to be a Russian family anywhere in the world right now? All right, with people making judgments on them. So that's interesting that you say that. Mark, Pat, Joe, Bill, Dinosaur. Yeah, right. I can't believe anybody's got that name, but never mind. Says, I'm not American, so I'm not familiar with names. Well, if you're not American, then what is your ethnicity? I'm also not American, but I know, yeah. Jeannie's saying we adore the Russians, the family. Yes, it's about the people, isn't it? So remember that I spend my whole winter nurturing things, right? I spend my whole winter growing seeds. A lot of them don't survive, but that's not why I do it. I do it because I like seeing things, right? I genuinely like seeing things popping out of the earth, all right? That gives me pleasure. And I know that. And so it's part of what I do to help me cope with the winter. You're an Ethiopian with the name Mark, Pat, Joe, Bill? Really? Living in Slovakia. Okay, well, if you're Ethiopian, where are you from in Ethiopia? So my spring basically starts in January. When I start going, okay, fine, now it's time for me to start playing with my seedlings again. So just so that you know, we can choose to do that. We don't have to wait until spring. Margaret Atwood, the author, said, in the spring and at the end of the day, you should smell like dirt. How many of you enjoy getting your hands dirty in dirt? You see, and if that's, if that gives you joy, I make a point of going and playing in the dirt. And Jody knows it because I will tell her I'm going to go out and play in it now. So very important. Um, and I'm not sure who said this particular quote, but it was spring, a lovely reminder of how beautiful change can truly be. And I love that. So, hi, Ginny. Good to see you. I'm doing very well. Thank you. Much, much better, Ginny. I was pretty sick for a week, but I have to tell you, I am definitely a whole lot better. Thank you for asking. And I appreciate that. So, my question to you is when would you like spring to start in your life next year? Right? We've now started it for this year, but when would you like spring to start for next year? And would you like to get yourself in, as some new cushion covers, a couple of them just to brighten up your life in January? All right. Would you like to plan your spring garden? If so, make sure that you are planning it and ordering the seeds and everything, back in the fall. And what my point is that you can enjoy all of that. You can see all the videos on how to do it, and you can see all the gardens in the world that you want to see. We have that ability. One of the things that I loved about something Jody said to me recently was that, there were these things that she couldn't do, but thank goodness that she can, travel the world on the internet. And I think that's really so important. Okay. And to me, that is about what can we do rather than what can't we do. So when I hear people say, "Oh, well, I hate winter because I'm locked into the house and da 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 da," I go, "No, I'm not." Right? Look at our viewer Charlotte. All right, lives in an incredibly cold climate in eastern Canada, and she made a commitment to herself that she was going to go out of the house for half an hour every single day, whether it was a blizzard, whether it was a snowstorm, whether it was torrential rain, didn't matter. Her commitment to herself was she was going to get out for half an hour every day. And for those of you who might not be able to walk a lot, can you go and sit outside in the fresh air? And the chances are, if I paid you $1 million to do it, could you? Yes, Jody's saying Charlotte is a superstar with self-care. Yeah, and remember that when we first met Charlotte, she was in a very depressed life. And look at her now. Yes, Jeannie, she's very upbeat. So did she do anything magical? No. She changed what she was doing in her life. That's what she changed. Right? And I think that is the important thing to remember, that we choose what we do with our day. We can choose to be locked up all winter, or we can choose to, find a bit of shelter somewhere and just, keep ourselves somewhere where we can sit comfortably and maybe have a nice hot cup of cocoa or something, and sit out for, even if it's 10 minutes. The truth is, you can do it if you want to. Or you can say, well, it's winter. So my question is, what do you want to get ready for next year? So start saving for it now. Yes, Kimmy's saying, I go outside for 5 minutes if it isn't so cold. You see, Charlotte is in, I think, probably lower temperatures than you might be, Kimmy, and she goes out for 30 minutes a day, regardless of the temperature. All right, that's her commitment. But great that you get out for 5 most days. That to me is, if you're doing that, that says you care about your body. You care about, the fresh air getting into your lungs, because that's all regenerative stuff, right? When we keep breathing in heated air, all right, and dust and all the rest of it, it's not good for our system. So I try to get outside twice a day. I have one thing that I do in the mornings, where I will go and empty my compost into my composter and stuff. And on the way back, I do a little bit of weeding or tidying up. And then I'll do another one in the afternoon. All right, just so I can get out and get fresh air. And if it's raining, it doesn't worry me. Actually, sometimes if it's raining, I just stay under my covered deck and tidy up there. But to me, it's about, can I do it? Jeannie's saying, today I was pleased to make a ham and cheese quiche. Yum. Right, that's and she's saying, which also had onions and mushrooms and broccolini. That sounds wonderful. Hi, Zach. Zach saying, very true. It is our natural obligation to look after our bodies. Yeah, and that's actually, Zach, one of the reasons why I want to grow sprouts. All right, bean sprouts. These, I'm not quite sure what sprouts these are, but once I've got this done, then I'll be starting to grow microgreens. And what I want is to put these in with a sandwich, all right? Just add them in. But I know that they haven't got any nasty stuff on them, right? That they're all organic. They're organic seeds, and I will be able to, know that I'm adding fresh sprouts to my sandwich, or to decorate my plate. Kimmy's saying, if it's raining or snowing, I will stay indoors, right? Well, again, the question is why? All right? Is the rain going to hurt you? Is the snow going to hurt you? And so the challenge I would give you, Kimmy, is see if you can go out one day when it's raining. And, just see if you can enjoy it. All right, so that's part of it. She said she will stand in the doorway. All right, there you go. As long as you're getting that fresh air. I want to now just talk a little bit about shock. And the reason that I would want to talk to you about that is because we have, I love to give real life examples of things. Jody and Lionel had a shock come into their life. First of all, you all know that Jody is our admin and Lionel is her husband. And Lionel, first of all, they had a shock a little while ago because Lionel fell on the ice and pulled his shoulder very badly. And he is Jodie's caregiver to a very large extent. Jodie has her own problems. And yet you never hear any excuses from Jodie about anything. It's amazing. And so anyway, the thing was that they were going along with their life, and life got in their way a bit more. They suddenly, Lionel needed to have a hearing aid test done. And when they went to do that, they said there was something wrong with the signal getting through from the one ear to the other. And so they said in 2% of the cases that could be caused by a tumor. So you can imagine just hearing that word alone. Can you imagine the shock that gives not only Lionel, but also Jodie as well? And the shock to your system like that is amazing what it does to your body. And so think about that. And the reason I want to talk about it is because it is important for you and for your friends. All right. So if your friends get a shock of some sort, and by the way, if a friend of yours says that, okay, well, I've got to have an MRI because they think it might be a tumor, please don't be stupid and say, oh, no, of course it's not. The answer is, yeah, you're right. There's a 2% chance that it could be, but a 2% chance. And let's presume, unless we hear otherwise, that that's all that it is a 2% chance. Because I find all too often when we hear that sort of diagnosis, we don't want to hear that ourselves, so we minimize it. And to me, that is disrespectful of the person, to minimize the shock of hearing something like that. As you can imagine, as Lionel is Jodie's caregiver, the moment that Lionel hears that and tells Jodie obviously is be perfectly normal for her to be scared stiff for Lionel, but then also immediately she must start to worry about herself, because what if something happens to Lionel? What happens to me? Because Lionel is my caregiver. So you understand, to minimize any of that is disrespectful in my view. So if you get a shock, and it doesn't have to be physical, it can be mental, right? Psychological. All sorts of things can happen, right? You can get a rapid or a heartbeat. You can get weak. You can even have an irregular heartbeat going on. You can be lightheaded, cool, clammy, feel anxiety for sure. You can actually, sometimes your urine decreases for some reason, right? And it'll affect your blood sugar for those of us who have to watch our blood sugars. And so, there's so many things that can happen. Now, I asked Jodie and Lionel what their experience was and how they dealt with it and how they paced themselves through the time up until the MRI and then till they got the results. All right, so Jodie is sharing this so that she knows that I won't say too much unless she puts up what I can say. So here we go. Jodie's saying, I am unable to live on my own, and part of me is always living in fear of the future. But I manage it by staying in the moment, right? Staying in the present, very important. So Jodie did say that when they heard the news, one of the things that they noticed was they got tired. And I thought that's an interesting thing. So if you have somebody that you know that's in shock and they get tired, you understand that's perfectly normal. I think, Jodie, as well, that part of being tired is if I'm asleep, I don't have to think about it. I think it's the body's way of protecting us in some way. What do you think? She was also saying to me that they've been focusing on moving forward. All right. In other words, they were prepared for what could happen, but they also were focused on moving forward. Jodie's saying, Sorry, Kimmy's saying, I'm freaking out about my pacemaker. I'm always I'm always so careful not to bump it. And I can feel it correcting my heart. All right. Good. And you're not alone in that, Kimmy. Have you joined a group maybe online that people with pacemakers? And the reason I say that, because I think a lot of them will give you a lot of help. I got more help from my viewers with diabetes than I did from anyone. You know what I mean? People who were actually living with diabetes could tell me so much. And I think it's really important that you stay part of a group. I got to remember to hydrate here. Jody talking about the sleep thing. She said, I agree, Sal, self-preservation. Very important thing. If you've had a shock, some bad news or whatever, you know, understanding that maybe getting some extra sleep is a very good thing to do. And Jeannie's saying to Jody, you're always in our prayers, Jody. I admire you so much for all you accomplish. Yeah. And all she accomplishes without excuses at all. It's amazing to me that she has that much, she now has that emotional intelligence. No, she cannot change what she cannot change. She needs to deal with what is. And when she does that, then she can move on, right? And so, oh, it's interesting. Kimmy's saying the cardiologist told me not to join any groups, but I did. Okay, so why did you go against the advice of your cardiologist? That's interesting. I think, the same thing is, I think I learned more from Jody's experience uh, than I did from going to um, the nurse. All right. And the reason is because I knew Jody dealt with it and was doing well with it, and I wanted her experience. Why would I work hard when I could work smart? Yes, Kimmy, I agree with you. To get more information. Jody is saying she has learned now that excuses waste my time and energy. I have no place for them in my life. Well done. Um, so Jody said, and when she sent me the note about it, she said, looking to spring as a reset of sorts, coming out of our winter, if you will. We have made new routines that help us get through the day, such as finishing our tasks before 6 p.m. And then it's popcorn and Coke Zero and a movie or a favorite old show to make us laugh. So what they noticed was when they were going through the shock phase, they set in a very good routine and kept to it. Right? Regardless of what they were feeling and how sad they were or how scared they were or whatever, they kept to a routine. Very important thing. And also made sure that they watch something every day to make them laugh. Very important thing. Now, they also have a little fluff ball called Taily. And the little fluff ball, I don't know anybody that's got a dog that won't agree with me on this one. If you want to laugh a lot, get a dog. I think that's the thing I miss most about not having a dog anymore. Because boy, uh, I've always had such entertaining dogs in my thing. Yes, I agree with you. Jody is saying normalcy is imperative, even if it's a new normal. Yes, well done. And Kimmy's saying, I've learned a lot that I didn't read or wasn't told by joining that group. Absolutely, Kimmy. I am so proud of you. That's called, being in charge of your own information. Well done. I'm so proud of you. I really am. And I'm also part of another group, but I realize that 90% of what some people are saying, they're trying to promote some product or whatever. So that's why I prefer Jody. Right? Jody's never tried to push some product at me or anything like that, right? She just tells me what is. And look what she's taught me. I mean, that's the incredible thing. I can when I had the flu, my blood sugars went up substantially, And then I remember Jody told me, just be careful if you get sick, because your blood sugars will go up. And they did. So I didn't panic. And now they are back into the low hundreds for those of you who speak American measurements. And for those of us who speak Canadian measurements, I'm back into the low sixes or high fives. So, I am really, and didn't panic. I didn't need to panic, because I knew that it was going to happen when I got sick. And I knew as soon as I started to get better, actually for me, it was one of the signs that I was getting better. Does that make sense? When my blood sugar started to drop, I went, oh, I must be getting better. Yeah. Jeannie's saying, finally, York, her husband, stopped being upset with poor vision and went to the local library for large print books. That is accepting what is and not fighting to try and read things with small print. Good for him. Please tell him I am so proud of him. All right. Jody's saying, you've done great work, Sal. Well, you've taught me a lot, Jody. It makes it easy, right? Kimmy's saying, my blood sugar go up and down when I'm sick, too. Yes. And you see, once I knew that was going to happen. Why? Jody had spoken to me about that. Now, Lionel is getting his fresh air every day by going and walking the fluff ball, little Taily, which is how he hurt his shoulder. But the thing that always amazed me is when he slipped on the ice and he fell, he never let go of the puppy. He didn't care what was going on his shoulder. He was not letting go of the puppy. And I'm sure that made Jody cry just thinking about that. Jody also said, we've been doing meal prep together, as usual, but it takes a bit longer, all right? Jody's immobility and then, one-armed Lionel, because, he cannot use the other arm at the moment. Between the two of them, they've had to learn new ways of cooking and new ways of working together. And so this is about, and I'm certain that they've got angrier in some places and they've laughed a lot. Why? It's life. Jody's saying, yeah, you're right. It did make her cry when she heard the story about Lionel hanging on to Taily. He's my hero. Yes, he's mine too. All right. So I asked her, what about the cleaning tasks? Are you beating up on yourself because your house isn't clean or tidy enough? Because when you are incapacitated like that, you can't do those things. Believe you me, I had 3 days where my major exercise was to crawl out of bed so I could crawl to the couch, and then crawl to the washroom and crawl back to the couch and then eventually crawl back to bed. So, I know that tidying up my house was not high on my list, and dust did not worry me. And so, there are times in your life where you have to sort of just go, whatever. So now we're waiting to find out, and we should find that out in a while, right, Jody? Which is what is the next step for Lionel and his shoulder? Will he go to have therapy done? What will be his next step? And then, maybe he will be able to do more, but maybe he won't. Maybe, we don't know what the next step is until we hear that diagnosis. And so, we'll keep our fingers crossed and we'll deal with it. Right? Whatever it is, we'll deal with it. How many of you understand that there is no right or wrong way? As long as you understand whatever it is, you will deal with it. I'm pretty certain Kimmy went into shock when they told her she needed a pacemaker. And I'm certain that she was terrified the day that they went to put it in. I mean, that's human nature. So to say, oh, don't worry, I think is disrespectful. Do you understand my point on this? When we minimize the shock that people are going through, we really are not honoring them. So, Kimmy, when you heard that you were going to have a pacemaker, I remember thinking, I'm glad that the pacemaker has been around for so long, because now putting in a pacemaker is sort of, almost like pulling wisdom teeth, right? It gets done so often. Um, but it's not like you're a guinea pig and you're only the third person to have it done, right? It's like, no, that people are pretty experienced on this now. So it doesn't make it any less scary for you, but it's good to know that people are pretty experienced in doing it. That's my point. So when you look at these things that give you a shock, hi, Pat. Pat, I've been thinking about you as I've been watching the crocuses come up. I'm waiting for the tulips and then I'll take the picture for you. For those of you who don't know, Pat is very far eastern Canada, and it's always my joy every year. I'm really a nasty person. Anyway, it's always my joy every year to take pictures of my tulips and then send them to her, knowing she's probably still got snow. What sort of mind do I have that I get joy out of that? All right, so Kimmy's saying, yes, I was terrified, but the day of my surgery, I had to turn off my mind. That is not easy. Pat's saying that Bill has tulips coming up as well. Really? Aren't you? Well, yeah, I guess we could both get more snow yet, right? Tell him I'm happy for him. The question is which, yeah, we won't ask that question. So the other thing that Jody said, which I think is very, very important for us all to remember, all right, which is focusing on the other person helps us take our mind off our own pain. So when Lionel is suffering from pain, he focuses on Jody. And then when Jody's going through really bad pain, she focuses on looking after Lionel. Interesting, right? Pat's saying that all 6 in the family have COVID. Wow. I want to tell you, I was sick as a dog last week, Pat, and I thought I had it, but I didn't, thank goodness. Jody, that's so cute. Pat, for those of you who don't know, Pat makes the most beautiful quilts, and Jody's just reminding Pat. My quilt's on my bed, and one of them's on my living room, because I got 2 when the fire happened. It was so kind of her. So, Pat, I think how much love. I felt how much love went into making the quilts. So to me, when I smile at them, which I do every day, when I literally I smile at my quilts every day. But I smile because I know how much love went into them. So, and that's very important. Okay, so Pat's saying that with the COVID, so you've got Omicron, right? So she's saying it's been very mild for both of us. I think the vaccines help. Yes, I believe so as well. Oh, interesting. Kimmy's saying I was awake during the surgery. This is the pacemaker inserting. It could feel things, but the medication they were giving me in the IV was tricking my mind. Interesting. Yeah, so Pat, sorry to hear that you all had it, but I'm glad that you got this version of it rather than, the original one or something. And I'm so glad that you had the vaccines. Because I agree with you, that I think when we've had the vaccines, we're going to get a lesser hit than people who haven't. I wanted to ask you all, how are the gas prices doing where you are? I've noticed that ours have come down a bit. I would say about 10%. What about you guys? Are they still going up where you live, or are they settling? How about this? Spring makes its own statement, so loud and clear that the gardener seems to be the only one of its instruments, not the composer. I love that. Kimmy's asking, do we need to get vaccinated again? I believe that it is possible that those of us over 65 may need another shot. I'm not 100% sure. Jody's saying that gas prices are down where she is as well, just a few cents. Yep, that's right. Pat is saying that the prices are still skyrocketing in Eastern Canada. Okay, so ours have settled down a bit. So just keep an eye on it because, I think with what's going on with Russia at the moment, it could be getting a lot worse in a little while. How about this one? Christina Rossetti said, spring is when life's alive in everything. It just has a thing about it, doesn't it? Yeah, Kimmy's saying she's had 3 shots. I've had 3 as well. Have any of you chosen not to get any shots? Now, yeah, Kimmy, it'll be like your regular flu shot. All right. I do believe we will need to be vaccinated with it. But I think what will happen is we'll get a combo type flu shot that will include it. I could be wrong. Or they will have both of them, that you'll be able to just have them. In the news, how many of you heard about Russia using what they call hypersonic weapons? And I wondered whether any of you would like to know what that is. Jeannie's saying about the 4th vaccine, she's saying that she has heard that it's not necessarily that good. Yes, but I also believe that those of us over 65 will still be wise to have it. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be on its own, it wouldn't be enough, but it's a top up for those of us who are older. Hi, Nyasha. How nice to see you. Well, it's always a pleasure to have you here, Nyasha, and I'm sorry you've been going through stuff. We've certainly had viewers going through quite a bit recently, so it's been a difficult sort of end of winter time for a lot of us. Yes, Jody's saying about the 4th shot, some protection is better than none, all right? So can you do that? So the reason I wanted to talk about the hypersonic missile, because I didn't know what a hypersonic one was. I was pretty certain it had to do with speed because it has the word sonic in it. But did you know that a hypersonic missile goes 5 times the speed of sound? 5 times. But then so does a ballistic missile. So what's the difference, right? And I thought I'd let you know what I managed to find out. I did a bit of research. So this is the curvature of the Earth. Well, it's actually rounder than that. It doesn't have that little bump in it. All right. So if I shoot a ballistic missile from here, it's going to go way up and then down like that. All right. And that means if I have got radar going, I'm going to spot it here. All right. And have time to send something up to counteract it. Does that make sense? Now, the difference is that a hypersonic missile doesn't go up as high, goes like this, okay? Doesn't go up as high because they can guide it. Here, this one, once you let it rip, you can't guide it anymore. But the hypersonic one, you can guide it, which means it can go on a much slower trajectory. And what happens is you don't get to see it until it's about here. And therefore, it is more difficult to see it coming and it is more difficult to shoot it down because of that. All right. So I thought I would explain that to you. Did that make sense to everybody? So they both go at Mach 5. That's the speed at which they go. That's five times the speed of sound. But one, the ballistic one, as soon as you shoot it, it's going to go wherever you target it to. The hypersonic ones, once you shoot it, you can still keep guiding it and keep it low and guide it so it can go very fast to where you want it. Okay. Jeannie saying, Mr. P seems to have lost his grip on reality. Sounds quite like, Mr. H that we know about. Ready to harm many, including his own Russian people who disagree with him. I hear he's also taking prisoners now. When I say taking prisoners, he's actually taking people that they've captured out of Ukraine and into Russia. And I think they will end up being the pawns that he will trade with any minute now. That's my guess, anyway. So I'm going to, I'm a great believer. If I'm sort of going, I don't know enough about that, I better research it. I'm going, then if I need to look it up, the chances are that maybe some of my viewers would appreciate the definition. So how many of you feel a little bit more educated now that you know what a hypersonic missile is? And if anybody says to you, oh, it goes 5 times the speed of sound, then you're going to be able to sound so intelligent because you're going to go, yeah, and so does a ballistic missile. That's not the reason it's dangerous. More dangerous, right? Niesh is saying, yeah, I miss you all so much. I missed listening to the broadcast, but it's so unfortunate. I missed a lot, but I never forgot you or thought about you all, right? But I just couldn't come even though I wanted to. That's quite all right. Niesh, we'll be here. That's why we do this 3 times a week. So hopefully you'll all be able to catch a broadcast, whenever you can. And there's no requirement to be at every single broadcast, right? And by the way, talking about that, I'm not aware of any birthdays or anything this week. So if any of the regular viewers or those of you in the background, if you've got a birthday or an anniversary coming up, please let us know so we can add you to our list. Well, Jody, it's my pleasure to explain it because, as I said, I reckon that if I didn't quite understand it, and I'm not saying I'm super intelligent, but if I don't quite understand it, then maybe there are other people who don't as well. Yeah, because I can't believe I'm the only one that doesn't understand it. In The Secret Garden, it was said, "Is spring coming?" he said. "What's it like?" "It is the sun shining on the rain and the rain falling on the sunshine." Isn't that beautiful? I love spring. I genuinely love spring. It's just like it's such a joyous time in my life, and so I am happy. And how about this one? Some old-fashioned things like fresh air and sunshine are hard to beat. By the way, I had a situation this week or in the last couple of weeks where I had a friend, and what I realized was that I was doing a lot of the contacting. And I made a conscious decision that I've been the instigator of contact for quite a while. And I said, something, I am not going to contact her now until she contacts me. So I left a lot of space. I wanted to see how long would it take her to realize I hadn't sent her the usual hug or the weekly check-in or whatever. And I was amazed how long it took before she woke up to the fact that I hadn't contacted her. But every now and then I will do that. If you expect me to do all the work, then I will. I think the expression I heard is, I will give you space. Enough space that you will think you're Neil Armstrong. And It's not so much about punishment. It's about, hey, do you realize that I'm the one that normally contacts you? And if you want to keep up this friendship, then you need to do some work too. Right. And Jeannie says spring is the season when things grow, vegetables sprout, and flowers open up. And so do people, right? And how many of you enjoy spring because of the birds? You can hear the birds again. One of the greatest joys I have living where I do is I have a hedge behind me between myself and the neighbor, and the neighbor feeds birds all through the winter, and they all love the hedge. And I can go into my spare room whenever I want to just chill. I can just stand there and watch little birds in that hedge. I can stand there for 15 minutes and just be totally at peace. It's wonderful. Spring won't let me stay in this house any longer. I must get out and breathe the air deeply again. Yes, and Kimmy's saying flowers and birds and rain and thunder. Yeah, they all come with spring. The beauty and the beast, all right? How about this? When spring came, even the false spring, there were no problems except where to be happiest. The only thing that could spoil a day was people, and if you could keep from making engagements, each day had no limits. People were always the limiters of happiness, except for the very few that were as good as spring itself. And that was from Ernest Hemingway. Oh, interesting. Pat's saying that where she's living in Eastern Canada, saying we got bird flu down here, so they don't want us feeding the birds. Interesting, Pat. I didn't know that. Victor Hugo said, if people did not love one another, I really don't see what the use would be of having any spring. And Dickens said, it was one of those March days when the sun shines hot and the wind blows cold, when the summer is in the light and the winter in the shade. I like that. By the way, I found a new thing. Um, I'm trying to do some basic yoga for my body. I've noticed that I've got a lot of problems with my back stretching enough, or my knees are not stretching enough. And so, although I'm getting the steps back in, I need to do yoga to stretch some of those muscles again. But I have problems getting down onto the floor and back up again. And my whole thing is about, it's not what I can't do, it's what can I do. So I thought, how can I do those exercises without getting up and down off the floor? Which is difficult for me now, but also could be dangerous. And so what I decided was, until the muscles are stronger, I'm going to do a lot of those yoga moves on my bed. In other words, instead of getting down on the floor, I'm going to get up on my bed and um, and do the exercises there. And I think, by the time I've done enough of it, my muscles will be strong enough that I'll be able to get up and down off the floor more easily. All right, so let's have a little see here what people are saying. Pat's saying about the bird flu. We got bird flu down here, da 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 da. Kimmy said, I think bird flu is in eastern US, okay? And Jeannie's, who in the eastern US, she's in Maine, said, I fed my birds all winter too. Now I see them frequently, and we see wild turkeys, hear owls, and see the tracks of the deer. Right. Uh, Pat is saying that the bird flu has now crossed over to crows. Interesting. Jody's saying that's smart, Sal, modifying the exercise to suit your ability. Yes. It's to me, it's like if I want to do the child pose, which is difficult for me, Um, it's easier to do it on my bed. I'm not going to fall over and hurt myself. I, it's a very simple pose, but, quite honestly, getting my back to stretch that much is going to take a lot of practice. So I'm trying to find ways to do it better. Yes, Kimmy's saying she's trying to find a mat like the ones they use in school. Funny enough, I've been using Pat's quilt, my one quilt I use as a mat. But I noticed that I have a problem getting up and down. And so I want to strengthen my muscles. Yeah, you can get a yoga mat online, or most, I would think, if you've got a Walmart near you, they're bound to have one in the fitness section, places like that. Or just buy yourself a roll of foam, so, or pick one up secondhand. How about this? An optimist is the human personification of spring. That is so true. And Ellen Montgomery said, that is one good thing about this world. There are always sure to be more springs. Well, let's hope that is true for our world. And I say that because, we could be heading into World War III any minute now. And so far, we've had a month of avoiding it, but it is possible it could happen. And then, getting our medications, getting things at all is going to become more and more difficult, and very, very difficult. Am I dining out tonight? No, Jeannie, I am not. I'm still eating up the food that we cooked on Friday. That's what I love about cooking on Fridays is it gives me enough food to keep me going for a few days. And I must admit that I thoroughly enjoyed what we made. It was fun. And so tonight I'm looking forward to having a little bit more. I have noticed that my portion sizes have definitely changed. I can get a full meal on a side plate now, whereas a full meal for me before was on a dinner plate. I now have a full meal on a side plate, which is amazing. But then it also allows me to have dessert, and that's the whole trick. And I'm still losing weight, which is the important part for me. Mark Twain said it's spring fever. That's what the name of it is. And when you've got it, you don't quite know what it is that you do want, but it fairly makes your heart ache. You want it so. Thank you, Jeannie. Jeannie's saying that the broadcast we did on Friday night was a terrific broadcast. What made it terrific for you, Jeannie? It's always nice to hear that you appreciate it, because they take a time to put together, to decide what is it I'm going to do. I loved making those string apple and string potatoes. Very time consuming, but they just look so pretty. What amazed me, Jeannie, was how long it takes to eat those string potatoes. It was just like you think you're just going to grab a handful and consume it, and um, you know, not so. Nyasha's asking, World War III question mark, is the war that bad? It could be. It could be. I'm not, and as I said, I'm not saying that it will happen. I'm hoping that somewhere somebody's going to talk sense into Russia, but we have to be aware that it could happen. So Jeannie's saying she heard it after the fact and loved seeing the string veggies. I want to tell you, they were so tasty, so tasty. Yeah. So Nyasha, The answer is no, not yet. But again, be prepared that it can happen. You know, when they're starting to take prisoners across back into Russia, and when they're starting to use hypersonic uh, weapons and things like that, you know, that every step that they push the envelope a little bit farther brings us closer to that situation. And I think even the Ukrainian president said, you know, he's willing to negotiate with uh, Mr. President Putin now, but if those negotiations fail, it's possible. So just be aware. You know, did any of us think we were going to have 2 years of pandemic? No. We don't know what's coming around the corner, right? The main thing is to stay flexible and keep being aware and keep being ready that anything can happen. Right, how about this one? Despite the forecast, live like it's spring, right? And I would say, despite the name on the month, live like it's spring. Wouldn't we be happier people? Yeah, and Kimmy's saying all these sanctions are not stopping Putin. Not yet. Not yet. Yeah. Jeannie's saying, for those of you who have faith, you know, never forget who is ultimately in charge, and that his plan is better than ours. Yes. And, you know, have hope. Have hope and have faith. But those are difficult things to have when you're dealing with somebody that is a tyrant. And so that is very difficult. Anne Broadstreet said, if we had no winter, the spring would not be so pleasant. If we did not sometimes taste adversity, prosperity would not be so welcome. Isn't that true? All right, Jeannie, good to see you. Thank you for being here. And remember to live spring every day and bring it into your life every day. So have a look at your life. If you don't like winter, make it spring. If you've got winter, you know, as Jody suddenly heard about what was going on in Lionel's life and hers, if you suddenly get a shock like that, then bring spring back in any way you can. Understand that we cannot change what is happening, but we can change how we deal with it. And that is the whole point about you can choose when to have spring, regardless of the weather. All right? Regardless of the weather, we can choose to have spring. There are people who are doing incredibly kind things in the middle of all this terror. There are people who have talents like violinists and pianists that are taking time to just entertain people, to help them bring that shock level down a bit. And I don't know about you, but those to me are the most magical people. There are doctors that are, you know, going out and putting themselves in severe danger because that is their oath to help those that need help. And you know, you look at it and you go, don't forget that in all the winter, there's always spring, right? There is always spring if you look for it. And you will see that every step of every day, we get moments of winter, and it's up to us to watch out for spring because it's there. There are things growing. Or maybe we need to nurture some of our friends a bit more. Maybe we need to get a new hobby to entertain ourselves a bit more. You know, it's not about them. It is about us and how we deal with it. So, my advice to you is understand what shock does to your body and also understand what spring does to your body. In reality, was there any major difference between yesterday, which was still winter, and today, which is spring, other than in our minds? And it is magical how, our minds can change the season so quickly. And that is the point that I wanted to bring home to you. We choose to keep it spring. So, everybody, have a wonderful week. Enjoy the spring. Enjoy everything that you possibly can. None of us know whether we will be here tomorrow. None of us know what the future holds. But boy, if we waste 1 minute of every day that we have, it would be so sad. So, Jody, thank you so much for looking after us, regardless of what's going on in your life and regardless of how much pain you and Lionel are in. You will never know how much I appreciate what you do so selflessly. And you are a credit to us all. To the rest of you, do the best you can with what you got. This is Dear Mama Sal saying, let's enjoy spring. I love you dearly. Bye bye for now.